I, 29, F, am married to Liam, 31 M. Or at least I was. The story of how it ended began with 3 words I had started to dread. I'm working late. Those words used to mean a project was heating up, a deadline was looming. They were a sign of his ambition, something I once admired. But over the last few months, they had become a constant refrain, a dull, repetitive beat in the rhythm of our lives. They were the excuse for missed dinners, canceled plans, and a growing distance between us that felt cold and vast. This time, it was our anniversary. Our 5th. I had made reservations at the small Italian place where he proposed. I bought a new dress. I spent the afternoon feeling a flutter of hope that maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. Maybe we could reconnect, find our way back to the easy warmth we used to share. He was supposed to be home by 6. At 6:15, my phone buzzed with a text. So sorry, babe. Something huge just came up at work. Have to work late. Rain check. My heart didn't break. It just sank, a heavy stone dropping into a deep, dark well of disappointment. This was the 3rd special occasion in a row he had canceled. My birthday, Valentine's Day, and now this. Each time, the excuse was the same. Work. Always work. I typed back a simple, okay. Be safe. I didn't have the energy to argue or plead. I just felt tired. I looked at the new dress hanging on the back of the bedroom door. It seemed to mock me with its hopeful shimmer. We were supposed to be saving for a house. That was the other constant refrain in our lives. We have to be careful with money, Anna. Liam would say whenever I suggested a weekend trip or even a nice dinner out. He managed our finances, a role he took on with a serious, almost paternalistic air. He had set up a joint savings account, and every month, a large chunk of both our paychecks went directly into it. He called it our future fund. He showed me the balance on his banking app sometimes, the numbers climbing steadily. See? We're a team. We're building something real, he would say, and I would feel a sense of security, of shared purpose. His mother, Helen, certainly thought he was the responsible one. She had never been openly hostile towards me, but there was always a subtle undercurrent of disapproval in her words. She would praise Liam endlessly for his work ethic, his financial discipline, his dedication. He works so hard for you, Anna, she would say, her eyes scanning my outfit as if to assess whether I was a worthy investment. You're a lucky girl to have a man so focused on the future. Her compliments always felt like criticisms in disguise. They made me feel small, like I was the frivolous one, the one who didn't appreciate the sacrifices her perfect son was making. She never acknowledged that I worked just as hard, that my salary contributed just as much to that future fund. In her eyes, Liam was the architect of our lives, and I was just a resident. Staring at my phone, at his casual dismissal of our anniversary, I felt a new feeling begin to bubble up through the weariness. It was suspicion. A cold, sharp sliver of it. The excuses were becoming too frequent, too convenient. The distance between us wasn't just about long hours at the office. It felt intentional. It felt like he was hiding something. I put the new dress back in the closet, the hope I had felt earlier now completely extinguished. I sat on the edge of our bed in the quiet house and made a decision. I was done waiting for him to come back to me. I was going to go to him. I went into the kitchen. I looked at the ingredients I had bought to make a special anniversary breakfast for the next morning. Instead, I decided to make him dinner. His favorite. Lasagna from scratch, the way my grandmother taught me. It was a peace offering, a gesture of love, but it was also a test. I would pack it up, drive to his office, and surprise him. I would see for myself what this huge project looked like. I told myself I was being a supportive wife. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was looking for an answer, and I was terrified of what I might find. The drive downtown felt surreal. The city lights blurred past my window as I rehearsed what I would say. Hi, honey, I know you're busy, but I didn't want you to miss out on a home-cooked meal. It sounded so cheerful, so normal. It sounded like a lie. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. What if he was annoyed? What if I was just being paranoid, and he really was buried in paperwork, stressed out of his mind? I would feel so foolish, so needy. But the alternative, sitting at home alone, staring at the walls and letting the suspicion fester, was worse. I had to know. I pulled into the parking garage across from his gleaming office tower. I found a spot, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a moment, the warm container of lasagna on the passenger seat beside me. It felt heavy, not just with the weight of the food, but with the weight of my uncertainty. I took a deep breath, grabbed the container, and got out of the car. Each step I took towards that building felt like a step towards a truth I might not be ready for. The night air was cool, but I felt a nervous sweat on my palms. The lobby was mostly empty. A skeleton crew of cleaners and a lone security guard at the front desk. The guard, a kind older man named George, recognized me. He had seen me many times before, waiting for Liam after work events or dropping off his forgotten lunch. "Evening, Mrs. Collins," he said with a warm smile. "Here to see the husband?" "Hi, George," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes, he's working late again. I thought I'd bring him some dinner, so he doesn't have to live on vending machine snacks." "That's mighty thoughtful of you," he said, buzzing me through the security gate. "He's lucky to have you. You can go on up. Floor 17-inch. I thanked him and got into the elevator. The ride-up felt agonizingly slow. The polished steel doors reflected a distorted version of my face, my expression tense and worried. When the doors opened on the 17th floor, I was met with silence and dim lighting. Most of the overhead lights were off, leaving the sprawling open-plan office in shadows. Only the emergency lights and the glow from a few computer monitors cast an eerie light. It was quieter than I expected. For a floor full of people racing to meet a huge deadline, it was practically deserted. I walked softly down the carpeted hallway, past rows of empty cubicles. My heels made no sound. I could hear the faint hum of the building's ventilation system and the frantic beating of my own heart. I rounded the corner to the executive offices, where Liam had a corner spot with a view of the city. I expected to see his light on, to see him hunched over his desk, a beacon of activity in the otherwise still office. But his office was dark. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't there. A wave of relief washed over me, so intense it made me dizzy. Maybe he had just finished up and was on his way home. Maybe I had missed him. I was about to turn around and leave, feeling silly and ashamed of my suspicion. But then I heard it, a sound from further down the hall. It was faint, but unmistakable. Laughter. A woman's laugh, light and musical, followed by Liam's deeper, familiar chuckle. My feet moved on their own, carrying me towards the sound. It was coming from one of the large conference rooms at the end of the corridor. The door was propped open just a crack, a thin slice of light spilling out into the dark hallway. I crept closer, my heart pounding against my ribs. I told myself they were just colleagues, blowing off steam after a long day. It was innocent. It had to be. I reached the door and peered through the narrow opening. The conference table was empty, except for a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. And there, by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, stood Liam. He wasn't alone. A woman was with him, a woman I recognized from company photos. Her name was Clara. She was standing very close to him, her hand resting on his chest. He was smiling down at her, a soft, intimate smile that I hadn't seen on his face in months. He gently brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. She leaned in and whispered something in his ear, and he laughed again, that same easy laugh I had just heard. There were no project files.
No laptops.
No evidence of any work at all. There was just the wine, the glittering city lights, and the two of them, bathed in the soft glow from a single lamp. They looked like a couple on a romantic date, not colleagues finishing a project. The scene was so peaceful, so perfect, it was obscene. It was a picture of my life, but with me cut out of it and replaced by her. I felt the air leave my lungs. I couldn't breathe. The container of lasagna in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy, a stupid, pathetic symbol of my own naivety. I took a step back, my heel catching on the carpet. I stumbled, making a small shuffling sound. Inside the room, they both turned towards the door. I froze, hidden in the darkness of the hallway. I saw the look of alarm on Liam's face, quickly replaced by a flicker of annoyance. He thought it was a security guard. He walked towards the door. I didn't wait. I turned and ran. I fled down the hallway, my heart hammering in my ears. I didn't stop until I was back in the elevator, jabbing the button for the lobby with a trembling finger. The door slid shut, and I finally let out the breath I had been holding in a ragged sob. I looked down at the lasagna. My grand gesture. My test. I had my answer, and it was so much worse than I could have ever imagined. Back in the car, I couldn't stop shaking. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember the traffic or the route I took. All I could see was that image replaying in my mind. Liam and Clara. His hand on her face. Her smile. The casual intimacy of it all. It was a betrayal so profound it felt like a physical wound. When I got home, I walked into the kitchen and threw the entire container of lasagna into the trash can with a loud, clattering thud. I felt a surge of rage, so pure and hot it momentarily burned away the pain. He didn't deserve my cooking. He didn't deserve my concern. He didn't deserve me. He came home 2 hours later. It was after midnight. I was in bed, pretending to be asleep, my body rigid with tension. I listened to him move around the apartment. He showered, the water running for a long time. Was he washing her scent off him? The thought made me feel sick. He finally slipped into bed, the mattress dipping with his weight. He didn't touch me. He just sighed heavily and turned his back to me. After a few minutes, his breathing evened out into the steady rhythm of sleep. He was sleeping peacefully. While my world had just been shattered, he was sleeping like a baby. The next morning, I woke up before him. I looked at his face, so calm and untroubled in sleep. I felt nothing. The love I had for him, the foundation of our entire life together, had been hollowed out overnight. All that remained was a cold, empty space. I got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The rage from the night before had cooled into a hard, clear resolve. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to find out everything. The first person I called was my best friend, Sarah. I had known her since college. She was the most practical, level-headed person I knew. I told her everything, my voice low and flat, devoid of emotion. I recounted the text message, the drive, the dark office, the scene in the conference room. I didn't leave out a single detail. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Sarah said, "Anna, I am so sorry. Are you okay?" "I don't know what I am," I admitted. "I just feel cold and angry. So angry, Sarah." "What are you going to do?" she asked gently. "Are you going to confront him?" "Not yet," I said, my eyes fixed on the banking website I had just logged into on my laptop. "I need more than just what I saw. He'll lie. He'll say it was innocent, that I misunderstood. He'll gaslight me until I start to believe him. I need proof. Something he can't deny." "What kind of proof?" she asked. "I don't know yet," I said. "But I have a feeling it's in here somewhere." I was looking at the transaction history for our joint checking account. It was the account our paychecks went into, the one we used for bills and daily expenses. I started scrolling back, month by month, looking for anything that seemed out of place. It didn't take long to find the first red flag. There were restaurant charges on weekday nights when he was supposedly working late, not just fast food or takeout. These were nice restaurants, the kind of places you go for a date. There was a charge for a French bistro downtown for $150. Another for a trendy sushi place for over $200. These were places he had told me we couldn't afford. Places he hadn't taken me in years. The dates of the charges lined up perfectly with the nights he had canceled on me, claiming he was too swamped with work to even grab a bite to eat. "I'm finding things, Sarah," I said, my voice tight. "Restaurant bills. Expensive ones." "Oh, Anna," she breathed. "That's awful." "It gets worse," I said, my finger tracing a recurring charge on the screen. "There's a charge here every month for the last 4 months. From a company called Blooms and Petals. It's a flower delivery service. I had never received flowers from him. Not for my birthday, not for Valentine's Day, not for our anniversary. I quickly opened a new tab and searched for the company. They were a high-end florist specializing in luxury bouquets. Each charge was for $95. Nearly $400 on flowers for someone who wasn't me. My mind was working quickly, connecting the dots. The woman in the conference room. Clara. He was whining and dining her. He was sending her flowers. All while telling me we had to cut back, that every penny needed to go into our house fund. The hypocrisy was staggering. The sheer audacity of it left me breathless. He's been spending our money on her, I said to Sarah, the words tasting like poison. The money for our bills, our groceries. You need to save all of this, Sarah said, her voice firm and practical. Take screenshots. Print it out. Create a record of everything. I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard, saving images, documenting dates and amounts. I felt like a detective investigating a crime. And in a way this was a crime. It was a theft of my trust, my future, my money. Then I logged into the big one. The joint savings account. The house fund. The sacred account that was supposed to represent our shared dream. The balance was lower than I expected. I scrolled through the transaction history. There were the regular monthly deposits from our paychecks. And then there was one massive withdrawal. It was from 2 weeks ago. A single transaction for $5,000. My blood ran cold. $5,000. That was a huge chunk of our savings. I clicked on the transaction details. The description was vague, cryptic. Investment transfer. I had never heard him mention any investment. He was meticulous about our finances. He would have discussed a move like this with me. He would have shown me charts and projections. He prided himself on his financial acumen. This was secretive. This was wrong. Sarah, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He took $5,000 out of our house fund. What? For what? She asked, her voice sharp with alarm. It says investment transfer, but I don't believe it. I don't believe him, I said. The cold resolve I had felt earlier was now mixed with a terrifying, nauseating dread. This was bigger than dinners and flowers. This was a grand-scale deception. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was stealing from us. From our future. What are you going to do? Sarah asked again. I stared at the screen, at the $5,000 hole in our dream. I'm going to find out where that money went, I said, my voice hard as steel. And then I'm going to make him pay for every single thing he has done. I spent the rest of the day in a haze of controlled fury. When Liam woke up, I was already dressed and seemingly busy with work on my laptop at the kitchen table. I greeted him with a neutral good morning. I didn't want to give anything away. I needed to maintain the illusion of normalcy until I had all the pieces of the puzzle. Morning, he said, stretching. He seemed completely oblivious. Did you sleep okay? Fine, I said, not looking up from my screen. The question was so ironic it almost made me laugh. I hadn't slept at all. I had spent the night staring at the ceiling. The image of him and Clara burned into my mind. He poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, watching me. You're up early, he commented. Just trying to get ahead on some work, I replied. Speaking of work, he said with a sigh, it's going to be another late one for me tonight. This project is just relentless. The lie was so casual, so effortless. I felt a surge of contempt. I just nodded. Okay, I said. Don't work too hard. I had to force the words out. Every part of me wanted to scream, to throw my laptop at his head, to demand answers. But I held it in. Patience. I needed to be patient. After he left for work, I went back to my investigation. The $5,000 investment transfer was the key. Where did it go? A simple bank transfer description wasn't enough. I needed more. I thought about how Liam managed his finances. He was obsessed with tracking everything. He used a personal finance app that synced all our accounts. He had it on his phone, but also on our shared tablet that we kept in the living room. He probably assumed I never used it. He was wrong. I found the tablet, my hands shaking slightly as I opened the app. I entered the password I had seen him use 100 times. It worked. I was in. The app showed a detailed breakdown of all our accounts. I navigated to the savings account and found the $5,000 withdrawal. I tapped on it, hoping for more information. And there it was. The app had more detail than the bank's website. It listed the recipient of the wire transfer. It wasn't a brokerage firm or an investment company. The name was Azure Luxury Travel. My heart stopped. A travel agency. A luxury travel agency. He hadn't made an investment. He had bought a trip. A very expensive trip. I felt a wave of dizziness. I sat down on the sofa, the tablet feeling heavy in my lap. Who was he taking on a luxury vacation? The answer was obvious, but I needed to see it in black and white. I needed absolute, undeniable proof. Where would the confirmation be? His email. Getting into his email was a long shot. He was usually so careful. But people get complacent. They get sloppy when they think no one is watching. The mail app on the tablet was logged into his personal email account. He must have forgotten to log out the last time he used it. I held my breath and opened the app. His inbox loaded. I felt a pang of guilt, like I was violating his privacy. But then I remembered the scene in the conference room. The lies, the stolen money. He had forfeited his right to privacy the moment he started living a double life. I searched the inbox for Azure Luxury Travel. A single email popped up. The subject line was, "Your booking confirmation, Rome and Amalfi Coast." My hands were trembling so badly I could barely tap on it. The email opened. It was a full itinerary. 2 first-class, round-trip tickets to Rome. 5 nights at a 5-star hotel in the heart of the city. 3 nights at a luxury seaside resort on the Amalfi Coast. The dates were for the week after his big project was supposedly due. The total cost was exactly $5,000. And then I saw the passenger names. Liam Collins and Clara Vance. I stared at the screen until the words blurred together. He had drained our house fund, the money we had both worked so hard to save, the foundation of the future he claimed to want with me, and he had used it to book a romantic, first-class Italian vacation with his coworker. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of it was stunning. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a new life with her, using the resources from our old one. I was funding my own replacement. The cold resolve I had felt earlier now burned white-hot. This was no longer just about a broken heart. This was about justice. He had underestimated me. He thought I was the quiet, trusting wife who would never question him. He thought he was smart enough to get away with it. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. I took a picture of the itinerary on the tablet with my phone. Then I took pictures of the bank statements, the flower receipts, the restaurant charges. I created a folder on my phone and labeled it Evidence. I felt a strange sense of calm descend over me. The uncertainty was gone. The pain was still there, a deep, throbbing ache in my chest, but it was now overshadowed by a powerful, clarifying anger. I knew exactly what I had to do. I called Sarah again. "I found it," I said, my voice steady. "I found everything I explained about the travel agency, the tablet, the email, the trip to Italy with Clara." "That absolute monster," Sarah said, her voice filled with fury on my behalf. "Anna, you need to call a lawyer. Right now." "I will," I said. "But not first. First, he needs to be exposed. I'm not going to let him quietly walk away from this and start his new life with her scot-free. He built this perfect image of himself, the devoted husband, the responsible provider. I'm going to tear it down. In front of everyone." "What are you thinking?" she asked, a note of caution in her voice. "His father's birthday is this weekend," I said. "His whole family will be there. His mother, who thinks he's a saint. His brother. His aunts and uncles. They're all hosting a big dinner for him at their house." "Oh, Anna. Are you sure? That's going to be so messy." "It's already messy, Sarah," I replied. "The only difference is, right now, I'm the only one covered in the mess. It's time to share. He loves his reputation more than anything. More than me, clearly. So, that's what I'm going to take from him. For the next few days, I lived a double life of my own. To Liam, I was the same wife I had always been. I made dinner. I asked about his day. I listened to his fabricated stories about the stress of his project, nodding with feigned sympathy. He seemed to relax, convinced he had gotten away with it. He had no idea that every polite smile, every casual question, was part of a carefully constructed facade. Inside, I was a coiled spring of rage and purpose. I was counting down the hours until his father's birthday dinner. During the day, I made my own preparations. I contacted a divorce lawyer Sarah recommended. I had a consultation over the phone and emailed her all the evidence I had collected. She was shocked by the flagrant financial deception. "This is very strong evidence of marital waste," she told me. "He used joint assets for a non-marital purpose, specifically to facilitate an affair. We can definitely get that money back for you in the settlement, and likely more." The legal confirmation strengthened my resolve. I wasn't just being vengeful. I was being smart. I was protecting myself. I also started quietly separating my life from his. I opened a new bank account in my own name. I started looking at apartments online. I was methodically dismantling the life we had built together, piece by piece, before he even knew it was over. Every action felt like a small victory, a step towards reclaiming my own future, a future that he would have no part in. The day of the party arrived. I spent the morning feeling a strange mix of dread and anticipation. Liam was in a great mood. "Just one more week of this hellish project," he said cheerfully as he got ready. "Then things will get back to normal, I promise. We can finally take that trip you've always wanted." The lie was so bald-faced, so insulting. It almost broke my composure. He was dangling a fake trip in front of me to keep me happy, while he had a real one booked with someone else. I just smiled a tight, brittle smile. "That sounds nice," I said. We drove to his parents' house in silence. I stared out the window, mentally rehearsing what I was going to say. I felt a tremor of fear. Could I really go through with this? Humiliating him in front of his entire family felt so cruel, so public. But then I remembered the darkness of his office, the sound of his laughter with her, the gaping hole in our savings account. He had chosen this path. He had created this situation. I was just going to turn on the lights so everyone could see it. When we arrived, the house was already full of people. Aunts, uncles, cousins. The whole Collins clan. His mother, Helen, rushed to greet us, pulling Liam into a tight hug. "There's my hard-working boy," she exclaimed, beaming at him. She gave me a cursory air kiss on the cheek.
"Anna,
"You look
fine."
I smiled back at her, a genuine smile this time. "It's a lovely party, Helen. You've outdone yourself." My politeness seemed to momentarily disarm her. She was used to me being quiet and reserved. She had no idea what was coming. We mingled for a while. I accepted condolences from relatives about how hard Liam was working. "You must barely see him," said an aunt. "I'm so glad he has you to take care of him." I just nodded and smiled, letting their words wash over me. They were all playing their part in the grand performance of Liam's perfect life. And I was about to bring the curtain down. Liam's brother, Mark, came over to say hello. Mark was different from the rest of the family. He was quieter, more observant. He had always been kind to me in a way that felt genuine, not performative. "Hey Anna," he said. "How are you holding up?" "Liam's been a ghost lately." "I'm managing," I said, meeting his eyes. I wondered how he would react to the truth. Would he defend his brother, or would he see the betrayal for what it was? Dinner was a loud, cheerful affair. Liam was at the head of the table, holding court, telling stories about his big project, embellishing the stress and the long hours. He was painting himself as a hero, a martyr for his family's future. I ate my food, my stomach in knots, waiting for the right moment. It came after the main course, when his father, a quiet, dignified man named Robert, was cutting the birthday cake. Helen stood up, tapping her glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," she announced, her voice filled with pride. She raised her glass. "To my wonderful husband, Robert, on his birthday. And a special thank you to my son, Liam, She turned to him, her eyes shining. For working so incredibly hard to provide for his family and build a future. We are all so proud of the man you've become. Everyone murmured in agreement, raising their glasses. To Liam, someone shouted. This was it. This was my moment. I stood up, my own glass in my hand. My heart was pounding, but my voice was surprisingly steady when I spoke. I'd like to add to that toast. The table fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I was usually so quiet at these family gatherings. My speaking up was unexpected. Liam looked at me, a small, patronizing smile on his face, as if he were indulging his shy wife. To Liam, I said, making direct eye contact with him across the table. And to his incredible dedication. He's been working so hard. He even used our house savings to book a very special trip to celebrate his big project success. A ripple of pleasant surprise went through the room. Helen clasped her hands together in delight. Oh, Liam, how wonderful, she gushed. Vacation. You two deserve it so much. Where are you going? I kept my eyes locked on Liam. His smile had vanished. His face was starting to pale. He knew. Oh, the trip isn't for me, I said, my voice clear and calm. The friendly chatter around the table died instantly. You could have heard a pin drop. I turned my gaze to Helen. It's for him and his coworker, a woman named Clara. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy and suffocating. I saw confusion on the faces of his aunts and uncles. I saw shock and dawning horror on his father's face. And I saw pure, unadulterated panic in Liam's eyes. He tried to shut it down, his voice a low, angry hiss. Anna, this is not the time or the place. I laughed, a short, sharp sound with no humor in it. When is the right time, Liam? I asked, my voice rising slightly. When is the right time to talk about the fact that you've been draining our joint account to take your mistress on dates? Or is the right time when you're sending her $100 bouquets of flowers with our grocery money? Helen gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Anna, that is a disgusting accusation. My son would never. Wouldn't he? I interrupted, my voice like ice. I pulled out my phone. I have the receipts, Helen. I have the credit card statements. The French bistro on the 10th. The sushi place on the 23rd. The flower deliveries on the 1st of every month for the last 4 months. I looked back at Liam, who was frozen in his chair, his face ashen. But my favorite is the $5,000 investment transfer from our house fund 2 weeks ago. The one you used to buy 2 first-class tickets to Italy. I turned to his brother, Mark, who was sitting next to me, his expression unreadable. I angled my phone so he could see the screen. I showed him the picture of the travel itinerary. The names, Liam Collins and Clara Vance. The 5-star hotels. The dates. He stared at it, his jaw tightening. He looked from the phone to his brother and then to me, and I saw a flicker of understanding and then disgust in his eyes. Liam finally found his voice. She's crazy, he stammered, looking around the table for support. She's making this all up. She's been emotional lately. Am I? I said. I stood up and walked around the table until I was standing right behind him. I leaned down, my voice low enough for only the people closest to us to hear. Ask him about the Azure Luxury Travel Agency, Helen. Ask him what he bought from them on the 15th of last month. Ask him to show you his work email. I'm sure the confirmation is still in his inbox. Liam shot up from his chair, his face contorted with rage. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. We are leaving, he snarled. We will discuss this at home. I yanked my arm out of his grasp. Don't you touch me, I said, my voice shaking with fury. And there is no home for us to talk in, Liam. You spent it. You spent it on her. His father, Robert, who had been silent until now, spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried an immense weight that cut through the tension in the room. Liam, is what she is saying true? Liam couldn't meet his father's eyes. He just stood there, speechless, his public humiliation complete. His carefully constructed world, the image of the perfect son, the devoted husband, had been completely and irrevocably shattered. In that moment, watching him stand there, exposed and pathetic, I didn't feel triumph. I just felt a profound, hollow emptiness. It was over, and everyone knew it. I turned without another word and walked out of the dining room. I could hear Helen starting to cry, a high, wailing sound. I heard Robert's voice, low and angry. I didn't stop. I walked out the front door, into the cool night air, and I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove away, leaving the wreckage of my marriage behind me. The next morning, my phone started ringing. The first call was from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text came through from the same number. "Anna, it's Mark. Please call me when you have a chance." I'm so sorry, I put the phone down, not ready to talk to anyone from that family yet. The second call was from Helen. I almost didn't answer, but a morbid curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to hear what she had to say. I was expecting an apology, or at least some form of regret. I was wrong. "Anna," she began, her voice cold and sharp, completely devoid of the tearful hysterics from the night before. "I cannot believe what you did. To air your private marital problems in front of our entire family. You have embarrassed us. You have embarrassed my son." I was so stunned by her audacity, I was momentarily speechless. Embarrassed him? I finally managed to say, "Helen, your son has been having an affair and stealing our life savings. I think he managed to embarrass himself just fine without my help." "There are ways to handle these things," she sniffed, her voice dripping with condescension. A dignified woman, a proper wife, would have handled this with grace and discretion. In private, you chose to create a vulgar spectacle. You were deliberately cruel. The accusation was so outrageously unfair it was almost laughable. "A dignified wife doesn't get her future stolen out from under her, Helen," I said, my voice rising. "He lied to me for months. He made me feel like I was the one who was being unreasonable for wanting to spend time with my own husband. He let you and everyone else praise him for being a hardworking provider while he was spending our money on another woman. You want to talk about dignity? Where was his? Where was yours, for that matter, raising a man who thinks this is acceptable behavior?" There was a sputtering sound on the other end of the line. "How dare you speak to me that way? I raised a good son." "No," I said, my voice dropping to a low, firm tone. "You raised a liar and a thief. And you enabled him every step of the way, making him think he could do no wrong. Well, he did wrong. And now he has to live with the consequences. And so do you." "Goodbye, Helen." I hung up before she could say another word. I blocked her number. I felt a sense of finality, of a door slamming shut for good. I would never have to listen to her backhanded compliments or her passive-aggressive nonsense again. The thought was liberating. A few hours later, I decided to call Mark back. I was still wary, but his text had seemed sincere. He answered on the first ring. "Anna? Thanks for calling back," he said, his voice quiet and heavy. "Listen, I don't even know what to say. I am so sorry for what Liam did to you. It's unforgivable." "Thank you, Mark," I said, surprised by the genuine remorse in his voice. "That means a lot, actually." "I saw the itinerary on your phone," he continued. "There's no excuse for it. None. And my mom. I heard her call you. I'm sorry for her, too. She's more concerned with appearances than with what's right. She's trying to smooth it over, but my dad isn't having it. He hasn't said a word to Liam since you left. I've never seen him so disappointed." "What happened after I left?" I asked, unable to stop myself. Mark sighed. "It was ugly. Liam tried to keep lying, but Dad shut him down. He told him to tell the truth. Liam finally admitted it. All of it. The affair, the money. He tried to frame it like he was under a lot of pressure, that he made a mistake. It was pathetic. Dad told him he had dishonored the family and that he needed to fix what he had broken. Then he told him to get out of his house. The image of Liam being thrown out of his own father's birthday party gave me a grim sense of satisfaction. It was a consequence he couldn't talk his way out of. I just wanted you to know that not all of us think he's a saint, Mark said. What you did last night, it took guts. And you were right to do it. He deserved to be exposed. If there's anything you need, anything at all, legal advice, help moving, anything, just call me. I mean it. His unexpected support was a small comfort in the midst of the chaos. It was a reminder that not everyone was blinded by loyalty. Some people could still see right from wrong. Thank you, Mark, I said again. I'll keep that in mind. Then came the messages from Liam. A torrent of them. They started as panicked texts. Anna, please call me. We need to talk about this. Don't do anything crazy. When I didn't respond, they became desperate. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I love you. We can fix this then. When I still didn't reply, they turned angry and accusatory. You ruined my life. You humiliated me in front of my family. After everything I did for you. I read the last message and laughed out loud. Everything he did for me? He had done it all for himself. I blocked his number, without a second thought. I had nothing left to say to him. From now on, my lawyer would do the talking. And she did. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal for him. The evidence I had collected was irrefutable. The financial infidelity was so clear-cut that his lawyer advised him to settle quickly to avoid a drawn-out and even more embarrassing court battle. The judge was not sympathetic to a man who stole from his wife's savings to fund a lavish affair. In the end, I got everything I was entitled to and then some. The court ordered him to repay the full $5,000 he had taken from the savings account, with interest. I was also awarded a significant portion of our other joint assets as punitive damages for the marital waste. To pay the settlement, he had to sell the new car he had been so proud of. The car he had probably used to drive Clara to their expensive dinners. The irony was not lost on me. I found a new apartment, a small but sunny one-bedroom in a neighborhood I had always loved. It was entirely mine. The process of moving was cathartic. I went through the home Liam and I had shared and sorted our lives into two piles, mine and his. I packed up my books, my clothes, my kitchen gadgets. I left behind the furniture we had picked out together, the photos of us smiling on vacations, the ghost of the life I thought we were building. I didn't want any of it. A few weeks after I moved out, I heard an update from Mark. He called just to check in, to see how I was doing. After we chatted for a bit, he hesitated, then said, "You might find this interesting. Liam and Clara broke up." "Oh," I said, trying to sound indifferent, though a part of me was intensely curious. "Yeah," Mark said. Apparently, she wasn't too thrilled to be dating a man who was publicly shamed, broke, and had to sell his car. And I guess the non-refundable trip to Italy wasn't as romantic when it was just him going alone because he couldn't get her name off the ticket. So he had gone. The thought of him, alone in a 5-star hotel in Rome, surrounded by happy couples, brought a bitter smile to my face. It was a fittingly lonely end to his grand, romantic gesture. His perfect escape had turned into a prison of his own making. Life moved on. I settled into my new apartment. I focused on my work. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during the last few years of my marriage. I slowly started to feel like myself again, not Liam's wife, just Anna. The ache of betrayal faded, replaced by a quiet strength I didn't know I possessed. One evening, I was on the phone with Sarah, telling her about my week. I had gotten a promotion at work. I had started taking a pottery class. I was feeling happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in a long time. "You sound good, Anna," she said. "Really good." "I feel good," I replied, looking around my small, peaceful living room. It wasn't the big house with the yard that Liam and I had planned, but it was real. It was mine. I feel free. I don't think he ever really saw me as a partner. I was just a supporting character in the story he was telling about himself. The good, responsible husband. I thought back to the man I had married, the ambition I had once admired. It hadn't been ambition. It had been a hunger for validation, for an image of success. He had needed an audience to applaud him. His family, his friends, his wife. He needed everyone to believe in the role he was playing. He wanted everyone to think he was a good man. I just showed them he was a man who was good at pretending. He finally learned what it feels like to have nothing real to show for it. And I learned what it feels like to be truly free. I had lost a husband and a house, but I had found myself. And that was a future worth investing in.